A quick note before we get into this video, this was an absolute nightmare to make. Pretty much everything that could have gone wrong did, and I think it was my punishment from God for the blasphemy known as trying to make sure that the Bruins did not win the 2011 Cup as was intended. Unfortunately, whether it be my webcam overlay being on screen for the entirety of the FHM footage, which I don't know how that happened, whether it be YouTube bopping the first edit of this, thanks to the NHL footage in the first 2 or 3 minutes or so, it was just an absolute mess to make, but at the very least I can say it's a video, it's got that going for it, and I hope you enjoy it nonetheless, and hopefully the next challenge has less issues. That would be nice. It was a matter of when, not if, the 2011 season was going to be featured on Rewriting History, and in particular, this challenge, taking control of the Vancouver Canucks with the sole purpose of winning the Stanley Cup, and in the process, robbing myself of the greatest moment I have had as a sports fan. The 2011 Stanley Cup Final represented the end of an era for whatever franchise walked away with the cup. For the Bruins, it was a chance to end a near 40-year drought during which they lost in the final 5 times while wasting the vast majority of the longest postseason appearance streak in NHL history at 29 consecutive years between 1967 and 1996. For the Canucks, it was their third and arguably best opportunity at winning their first cup in franchise history. In the end, the Bruins came back from 2-0 down in the series to take it in 7 games. I went to a parade, the city of Vancouver rioted and banged in the streets, and we all lived happily ever after. But what if we didn't? What if the Bruins managed to find the one way to disappoint me more than blowing a 3-0 series lead to Philadelphia the year before? What if the Vancouver Canucks actually got the job done? There's so much history here, so many storylines from this point in time that could be discussed from both sides that I simply cannot cover it all in this intro. It would have to be the entire video. So let's get down to business. Can we turn the angry rioting in the streets of Vancouver into happier rioting? There would have been riots regardless, people. Let's find out, although maybe we shouldn't make it to the final. It would have saved a lot of money and cleanup time. And with all that said, let's get down to business, shall we? It is September 20th, 2010, and this is what the Canucks roster looks like. Maybe a debatable point to have Ryan Kesler be a 5-star player, but then again, maybe not. Ryan Kesler was something special around this time. Of course, Roberto Luongo and the Sedins leading the way. From there, another debatable point as far as whether or not some of these ratings are a tad bit low, and of course I say that as a Bruins fan. But Dan Hamhuis only being 3.5-star, Ehrhoff and Burrows at 3 each, Raffi Torres and Corey Schneider being on the team as well. Whether or not he gets dealt, time will tell. It would make sense, but of course you also have the likes of Tanner Glass, Rick Rippon on this squad. It's a decent enough starting team, although of course changes are going to have to be made if we want to try and accomplish our goal of winning the cup. I do not know if we're going to be as over-the-top ridiculous as we were in the last challenge. I suppose that depends on how everything's looking, and if you look here, there are some very interesting names on the free agent list. I don't think I'm going to sign Dominik Hasek. That would be insane. Vasily Kochechkin's there as well. Jaromir Jagr, of course. Sergei Mazakin. I probably should have pointed out Jagr first, but some people are probably mad that I did not. Josh Harding, Kari Ramos, Sergei Fedorov. A lot of interesting names there. Not to mention a goaltender like Andrew Hammond, where I don't know if I agree with the potential being that high, but I mean, there's no reason as to why we would not sign him for the express purpose of basically immediately trading him. So we are still going to wheel and deal. As I continue to hit all the wrong buttons, we are going to continue to wheel and deal. We're going to have to. Again, just don't know if it's going to be as ridiculous as like, oh, hey, let's swap every draft pick as well. I think it mainly depends on whether or not the draft picks prove to have that much value, as I don't have to sign Jordan Schrader. Signing Hasek would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Or Jagr, for that matter. Alex Friesen's available. Sergei Mazakin, of course, one of the KHL's all-time greats. You also have someone like Matt Reed currently there. It's a tough one. You know what? As weird as it is, we're going for it. We are going to sign Dominik Hasek. He wants a 2-year deal at $2 million per, which is, you know, we can do it. We can afford it. I mean, granted, we're not going to have the cap space, but we can afford it. And that is the one factor here. Unlike in the previous challenge with the Edmonton Oilers, there is a cap that we have to adhere to. So, needless to say, the majority of these players that we look to sign, we're going to try to move out, of course. Alex Friesen, we don't have to worry about those. I mentioned Sergei Mazakin. Let's see if we can bring him in 3 years at $3.56. That is a fair price, I got to be honest. And that could be the one spot where it gets to be a little bit more interesting in terms of whether or not we can actually set up this team in truly dominant fashion. As I think I'm going to try to sign Matt Reed as well, just because I knew he was going to be a little bit cheaper. I'm actually surprised he was there, just as an outright NCAA free agent, I guess. Luke Glendening is also available. I think that would be another decent signing for us to sign him to an ELC. That brings us up to 50 contracts. From there, let's see what we can manage to do. Of course, we do have Schrader, Friesen, and I believe that's Bill Sweat. I guess if you'd pronounce that name however way you want. The big question is whether or not we use Corey Schneider, and I suppose it depends on whether or not we have to. Eddie Lack is certainly going to be dealt. There's no reason not to. Cody Hodgson's only a one-star player at this point. No reason not to deal him. Even someone like Anton Rodin. We're going to look to move on from these guys, although I don't need all of them active right now. If we take a look at the depth chart, I mean, goaltending-wise, we still need to wait for those contracts to go through, but I'd prefer to get those guys, or to get some moves out of the way while those guys are being signed. So if we look at our defense, Andrew Alberts is our 6th defenseman. We undoubtedly need some help on the defensive end, first and foremost, and that is exactly what we will look to do here early on. I don't necessarily, actually, I would probably prefer to get a deal done with somebody like Anaheim, weaken our competition. Lubo Vishnofsky is the top option there at 3 stars. Not the most durable player. It's normal, though, so that's okay. Again, whether or not we think the Ducks are going to be our biggest competition in the West, that is certainly a debatable point. If we also want to take a look at Calgary, who have in his prime Jay Bouwmeester. I don't know if I agree with those ratings, but again, you never know. It's all debatable. And to be honest, the way FHM decides ratings, it's different compared to as say an NHL decides them or an EA. St. Louis also looking ridiculous with Eric Johnson and Alex Pietrangelo. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring in any of these half-decent guys. The cap hits right now are showing up as a 0 as well, but we know that we have a limit. In terms of bringing in an Eric Johnson, just because he's very inexpensive, as is Pietrangelo, how close would we be, technically, if I wanted to go for Eric Johnson? Which I know what some people are saying, no, God, no, but at least in terms of how good he is in this game, it would be quite useful, but I think he's going to be too good unless we throw in like a really high-rated draft pick. Even then, yeah, Eric Johnson's value is just through the goddamn roof right now. I think I'm actually going to move forward today. I know I said I would have preferred to have gotten some of the signings out of the way first, or some of the trades out of the way first before the signings kicked in. But let's at least move forward that day, and we'll see. There we go. So now the cap hits are kicking in. I don't know if that was just a glitch or what, but I had a feeling. No, the team's cap hits still aren't showing up. Is Fog of War on? Let's find out. It is not, which is incredibly weird. So I guess maybe I'll move forward again. Unless some of those guys are like down in the minors for the preseason, I suppose that would make sense. Let's try to sim this game here, this preseason game against Detroit. We'll just run with our best squad for the moment. Go ahead and delete those, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting pretty much everybody that we need here. Let's sim this preseason game. We lose 2-1. Not too concerned. Henrik Zetterberg had himself a good game. Salary cap reminder. I am quite aware. You know what, let's talk here. Let's find some deals. So St. Louis might be tough to weaken. San Jose, on the other hand, they're also going to be pretty tough to weaken. We could look to pick up, say, a Dan Boyle. I mean, there's always the strategy of trying to weaken the opposition. And it would certainly be helpful. Bringing in Keithy Handel would be a spectacular deal for us. That is one hell of a contract, though, to the point where I don't know if it's going to be possible, but they would outright accept that deal for Andrew Hammond. Is there anybody making a bit too much money? Luongo's making $8 million for Kessler. I honestly think Keithy Handel's too expensive. Keithy Handel is too expensive. Although I can tell you right now, Kevin BX at a 2-star, 2.7 mil. I am going to have a very hard time building this team. We're going to have to look for we might not be able to shop exclusively with Western Conference teams. There's a much better chance of us having to, if we can find like a Shea Weber who wasn't making $8 million, like that type of player, right? That's what we're looking for. And I can't help but think, maybe if we go to the roster page and scroll down, there we go. Now we're looking at the cap hits. So we need, and literally the cap hits, it was the Capitals. Let's look at Western teams first. We'll go back to Anaheim. And in terms of, again, top-notch players who aren't making anything, we're going to be able to find anybody. We'll search from Western Conference teams first. But it's going to be tough. Even someone like an Ian White is making nearly 1.6, which really complicates what we're doing here. And, man, I'm really struggling to find a high-end player. There we go. So, like, a Ryan O'Reilly is perfect, right? Very good already. Low cap hit. O'Reilly's perfect. Now, he's not exactly the defenseman that we need, but what an addition to this team he would be. And this is, again, why I think we won't be able to shop just exclusively with Western teams. At least for defensemen, Jamie Benn is another perfect example of the type of player we're going to need to pick up. James Neal as well at 2.5-star would be a tremendous addition. Detroit's roster right now is looking a little bit weird because of the preseason, and I imagine they're having some cap trouble due to that roster. Top player on Edmonton, Dubnyk, 900K. Not that we need him. Magnus Pajärvi, Taylor Hall is there at 2.5-star, of course. Fresh out of the draft, or prepared to be. The roster's in a little bit of a weird spot with the whole 2011 draft thing. Let's see. Wideman, granted, Florida doesn't work. Los Angeles. Drew Doughty is making a little bit too much. At the very least, too, this gives you guys a look at what the rosters were shaping up to be at this point in time, and then who knows, maybe I end up missing somebody who should have been an obvious pickup, but right now for Western Conference teams, in terms of helping our defense, it's not going to happen. We have to shop from the East, aside from bringing in an Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That's pretty much the only player that I've seen that fits what we need to do. And if I offer Andrew Hammond, to be honest, Andrew Hammond right now is the main bartering piece. What about Eddie Lack? So for Eddie Lack, they won't accept. But if I go to player rights, say we toss in Jordan Schrader and Friesen and Bill Sweat for the hell of it, just to make the most of these guys, and then we toss in a 7th, that is not enough. What about a 5th? Still not enough. How about a 4th? Still not enough. A 3rd? Not enough. What about a 2nd? There we go. So Eddie Lack and a 2nd, along with the rights to Jordan Schrader, Alex Friesen, and Bill Sweat for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Hopefully that goes through. It would be extremely helpful. We do have another preseason game here against Anaheim that we end up winning 4-2. And we'll take it from there, as a couple of other of those contracts have gone through. We have a preseason game tomorrow against Washington, another back-to-back. We'll see what happens here against the Caps. And that is a 3-1 loss, unfortunately. But again, preseason, we don't really care. San Jose, can we beat the Sharks? Yes, we can. So 2-2 this preseason. And the Coyotes have accepted. So again, Lack a 2nd, Schrader, Friesen, and Sweat for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That will improve the defense. Significantly, I think, is fair. But again, right now, if we look here, our 6th defenseman is still Sammy Salo. And Keith Ballard's at 1-star as well. We need to bring in at least 2 more NHL-ready defensemen, and they're going to have to be from Eastern Conference teams. We have no choice. So let's look here with Washington. Do we have anybody that's overly cheap? John Carlson. There's also a very young Braden Holtby there, but John Carlson right now is going to be the next target. And the question is, what do we give up? Again, Andrew Hammond's going to be reserved for the really high-end players. So Scott Darling is the ideal target here. Anton Rodin as well. Hodgson and a young Chris Tanev. Let's add in Hodgson, and unfortunately the value here doesn't seem to be out of control. We'll add Tanev as well, and we are struggling. Okay, so year in and year out, the way teams value certain players and certain picks certainly changes. You look at all that value, and yet we are not even close to having a deal done for John Carlson. They just flat out do not want to trade him. So that is not going to be a direction that we can go. Let's take a look at Atlanta. Easy for me to say. Is there anybody overly cheap? A younger Evander Kane, but that doesn't really help. Boston's an interesting team to discuss with the young Brad Marchand, but nothing too crazy. Buffalo, do you have anybody? Tyler Myers. That is perfect. Tyler Ennis is also there, but I care more about a 20-year-old Tyler Myers and whether or not we'd be able to pull off this deal. So Darling is already well balanced. Anton Rodin doesn't quite push that into our favor. What about Hodgson? There we go. So Darling, Rodin, and Hodgson for Tyler Myers would be a hell of a deal for us. We'll see if we can get that to go through as we prepare for more preseason games. As we get the big win over Nashville, 6-2. 3-point night for the Sedins each. And Colorado, what do we got? A 3-1 loss, but that's okay. So let's see. Burrows is almost 100%. As that deal with Buffalo's gone through. So Tyler Myers, welcome aboard. Again, we're still going to need another big defenseman, but that does push Andrew Alberts off the roster, which is... I mean, I like Andrew Alberts, former Bruin, but that's probably for the best. So let's see who else we have here. Calgary didn't really work for defensemen. Carolina. Sutter. As every Canucks fan yells out, please God, no. Jamie McBain was there, but I think we can get somebody better. Columbus. Nobody overly cheap. Derek McKenzie, I think, was the cheapest guy there. Detroit. No one was really going to help us on that front. Florida. Anybody cheap? Frolik and Jason Garrison. Jason Garrison could work. He shouldn't be that expensive, and we should be able to find somebody half decent. So they'd outright accept that offer for Tanev. I'm sure they would, as every Canucks fan yells out, please God, no. It's going to be worth it, though, as long as we win. So a second rounder would be too much. What about a fourth? That's well balanced. Sixth? Okay. So the trade is 1-for-1. Chris Tanev for Jason Garrison, which, again, I imagine for the majority of Canucks fans, I just absolutely broke your heart, but it should be worth it, I would hope. So overall-wise, we know that Jamie Benn is on a very cheap deal, and we're going to see if we can get the Stars to do something very stupid involving Andrew Hammond. Again, Tanev cannot be used there. However, Luke Glendening can be. Let's see who else we can use here. Kevin Connauton. Andrew Hammond, Luke Glendening, and Kevin Connauton for Jamie Benn. I will try it. Why Andrew Hammond has that high a value, I do not know. But I will gladly take advantage of it as we lose to the Flyers in yet another preseason game. And there we go. Jamie Benn for Andrew Hammond, Luke Glendening, and Kevin Connauton. Let's do it. As we already have a couple of players on waivers. Nobody too concerning. Everybody should clear. But that is a very big pickup. Well, of course, we'll try to make sure the Sedins play together. But the Sedins with Jamie Benn. Decent little deal there. If we look again at the team defensive depth, it's Hamhuis, Myers, Ehrhoff, OEL, Bieksa, and Ballard. So we still need one more half-decent defenseman, if not two more, for a little bit of depth. So the Leafs have, Kuhlman doesn't really help. They do have Luke Schenn, in which every Canucks fan screams, please God, no. But at the time, at least, he could be somewhat useful to us, especially to as another half-decent option who is relatively cheap. So the Tanev deal hasn't gone through yet, and I'm starting to think it's not going to. We do have Darren Archibald. Is there anybody else? Not really, at least with like impeccable value. We got a lot of nothings at one, half stars in terms of these ratings here. So a first round pick would put it way into our favor, or way into their favor. So we'll do Archibald, a third and a fourth for Luke Schenn, which is a pretty good price for us. The offer with the Panthers has gone through. Jason Garrison, welcome aboard. And actually, now that that's gone through, this last trade involving Schenn is pretty much the last thing we're going to have to do. It's going to push, more than likely, Sammy Salo and potentially Keith Ballard off the roster. So we'll see what happens here. Tyler Myers wants to change that number, which works for me. And right now we are over the cap, which isn't surprising. So if we change that up, let's see what we're dealing with. So as far as anybody on waivers, Garrison and Yannick Hansen are on waivers, and there's basically nothing I could do about it. So if we end up losing somebody, then fair play, I do suppose. I could have sent down Hasek, and that would have helped quite a bit. But in all honesty, it's too late for that. So let's hope we don't lose anybody. As the Luke Schenn trade has gone through, Mark Savard is actually on waivers, although at this point they completely dropped down his talent level, which I don't blame them at all. So Hansen cleared waivers. And who else was sent down? I genuinely don't remember. I've already blanked on who else was sent down. It was Garrison, and he's there, so we're okay on that front. So right now, we're going to drop, or not. I do want to try to trade Hasek right now, but we might get in a little bit more trouble cap-wise. So let's see what we can do here. Defensively, we know the roster is okay. Ballard and Salo are now the depth. Might want to bring in one more defenseman just to really shore things up in case of injury, which that is one of the storylines I was referring to in the intro, of course, is that, you talk about the injuries. What would have been different had, really for both sides. I mean, you talk about the Nathan Horton injury for the Bruins, you talk about injuries to Mason Raymond and others for Vancouver. Just more to be added to those storylines, as Victor frickin' Hedman and Steven Stamkos are both dirt cheap. Don't mind if I do. So many different storylines, so many different talking points from this series. It really was ridiculous. Let's take a look here. I don't know how the hell we'd pull this off. It would probably have to involve Dominik Hasek. Also, Jágr is day-to-day. 1 to 2 month injury for Sammy Salo. That sounds about right for Sammy Salo, I gotta be honest. That said, if I can deal him, he's actually not even making that much. But I need to free up money from Hasek to make this happen. And of course, we have draft picks to deal, but if they don't want Hasek, which it looks like they don't, I'm gonna have to give up quite a bit here, which means I wouldn't have really gotten any benefit from signing Hasek in the first place. My God, the injuries we're dealing with right now. That really doesn't help. Oh, it's a tough call as far as what to do here. Not to mention there are still other players that we can get rid of. But right now, we are not going to get much from Dominik Hasek, at least not as much as I would have hoped. Kochechkin as well. How much is Kochechkin making? I guess is the real question. What is your contract, sir? I don't even remember what the hell I signed you to. Entry level? Okay. It's not saying... Oh, okay, 900K. There we go. So at least it's not all that expensive for Kochechkin, who would allow us to deal Corey Schneider. So I need to find a way. I might just outright shop Hasek and see what I can get. There's no way it's going to be anybody of fair value. Aaron Voros in a 7th. Cedric Desjardins in a 7th. Dwayne Rollison, yeah. So he has very, very little value. I could get a 4th round pick from the Leafs. To be honest, I'm going to take that just to get Hasek off roster because he's way too expensive for us. And in that way, too, we can call up whoever we need to on defense. So we're looking better on that front. I think I am going to try to trade Schneider we'll keep Kochechkin, and we'll use Schneider in the deal. So, again, one more defenseman to have better depth than Ballard or Salo would be great. So let's see who we can find. And this will be the Corey Schneider trade. Of course, sending him to New Jersey would be hilarious. And in fairness, that might be where we might be able to get Victor Hedman. Now, we are lacking, excuse me, we are lacking like a true top defenseman, at least in terms of another one, but the well-rounded depth could be very helpful for us. Let's see. Will this go through? Corey Schneider, a first, 2/3, and a 4th for Victor Hedman. That'd be a hell of a deal. About time it went through. We will be starting off our season against the LA Kings. Let's see how this goes. It's a nice 2-1 victory over Quick. Sergei Shirokov, I guess that would be with 2 points in the win. So we play Florida in a back-to-back, and it's another 2-1 victory. We win the Luongo Bowl. Jamie Benn's officially converted to a right wing, and the deal has gone through. We leverage the farm, but we bring in Victor Hedman, a very young Victor Hedman. To improve the defense, he immediately goes to the top pairing. So our defense right now is Hedman, Myers, Hamhugh, Shen, Garrison, and Bieksa. I think that would mean... Where is Edler? Is he still... How did Alex... He must have been on waivers somehow. Did I just manage to lose Alex Edler? September 20th, 2010. Vancouver gets a 3rd-round pick. The Rangers get Edler. I don't recall that happening. You might. I don't. I'm just going to roll with it. We don't have Alex Edler. When that allegedly happened, don't know. So right now it's still Hamhughes, Hedman, Myers, Shen, OEL, and Jason Garrison. It's still not bad. BX is now our 7th defenseman, so we're good on that front. Forward-wise, again, as weird as it is, Jaromir Jagr is a Canuck. I think, ideally here, I'm going to do a couple of things. We are going to not be able to buy out anybody. Oh, boy. Okay. We need to free up some roster spots. Whether or not that is possible for us, time will tell. But the likes of Nolan Baumgartner... The likes of Nathan Pache, Evan Oberg, I think that would be. Indeed it is. Sauve, and Wyman I want to keep. Is this Parent? It is. So the question is, can I ship them to Anaheim for nothing? Pretty much. Actually, I'll have to take out Parent. Basically, what I want to do is a 4-for-1 trade. So give me Voros, because I know you want to trade him. And then I'll throw in a draft pick. Like a 5th. Actually, maybe even less. How about a 7th? How about a 6th? Okay. So hopefully that goes through. And then that way we free up some roster spots. And can sign some other high-end free agents to keep wheeling and dealing here. So we end up beating Anaheim 5-2. To move to a perfect 3-0 on the season. Jamie Benn with a hat trick. Which is a very good sign for us. We play Los Angeles again. Pick up a 4-3 win. We move to 4-0 on the season. And Anaheim accepted that deal, which is perfect, as I don't know when we're going to be able to jump to the end of the season and be like, hey, we're good to go. But, wheeling and dealing, it's still working out for us. Let's see what we can continue to do. And it's pretty much just going to be more of that. Oreskovich, Guillaume Debienne can go, and Joel Perreault. We'll go back to Anaheim. We'll tag in Jason Blake, and we'll throw in a draft pick. God, that Blake contract sucks. We'll throw in a draft pick. It might have to be an expensive one. Oh, boy. We will throw... Oh, that's a rough one. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it just to free up these contract spots. We play Carolina, the Eddie Lack Bowl. We end up getting a 2-1 win, so we are 5-0 to start the season, which is a very good sign for us. That deal is done. And I'm going to continue to do this, actually, until we get rid of pretty much all the garbage on the team, all of these terrible contracts for these half-star players who are not going to be useful for us whatsoever. And I think it'll continue to be Anaheim who are the beneficiaries of this. Palmera is on the trade block, so this should be cheap enough. There we go. Much cheaper for that Jason Blake. Anaheim. I wish. I'm not surprised. So we got to go back. Let's see if we can find somebody on Tampa. For that Jason Blake deal, I definitely should have found someone who was on the trade block. But me not completely fleecing the AI for once, it felt fair to let that go through and to actually take an L on a trade for once. So we're going to have to use a slightly more valuable pick. How about a 5th? Oh boy, it might have to be an even more valuable pick than that. 3rd rounder isn't enough. What about a 2nd? Oh boy, okay, maybe not Freddie Meyer. Maybe not. Maybe he's a bit too valuable. What about... Nigel Dawes has too much value. Frederick Modine. What about Freddie Modine? I might run out of luck in terms of getting these to go through. It was the Jason Blake contract that they just flat out did not want. Had a feeling when I saw the contract length. Lad Lee Sweat. And let's go for, say, a 7th. That's well balanced. Let's go for a 5th. Still well balanced. How about a 3rd? Oh my god, what about a 2nd? Are you kidding me? Alright, I'm going to do that again, which is batshit insane, but it's going to work out in the long run to improve the team. We play Minnesota and pick up a 2-1 win. We moved to 6-0 on the season. We followed up with a game against the Blackhawks, and they hand us our first loss of the season, a 28-save shutout for Corey Crawford, as that Modine trade has gone through, and we will have a lot more contract spots to work with now. So let's see who is out there on the free agent list. So we'll go for the likes of Alex Killorn. Technically, I have 18 contract spots available, which is absolutely ridiculous. So one way or another, we're going to be able to improve the value that we have on the team, and I guess just in general, the players that we have that'll be of use to us, because, you know, we're going to be signing the likes of Kari Ramo as long as he's not too expensive. We'll be signing the likes of Ramo, although we got to take out the depth role because he doesn't like it. We'll be going after Josh Harding as well. He wants a no-trade clause, which is okay because then technically we could use him as the backup goaltender and trade Kochechkin. So that would work. Thomas Greiss, as long as you don't want a no-trade clause, we can pretty much flip you. He doesn't like the depth role. It's kind of weird how it auto-assigns depth roles like that, and then the players are often like, yeah, no thanks. It's like, well, that's what you asked for, man. Brian Flynn. Habs great, Brian Flynn. See if we can get him. Now we're down to 2-star players, so we'll go for the likes of Rowney. Carter Rowney, sign him up. I mean, we're going to be able to sign basically everybody we want here. We still have, this will be our 40th contract, Mario Kempe. We still have a lot of room here. Morozov wants a no-trade clause. That's fine. He can be a useful player for us. And the good thing is basically nobody's that expensive here, as we're just signing the best the KHL. In fairness, I don't know if they've rebranded from the Russian Super League at this point yet, but we're basically signing the best that the KHL have to offer at the time and making a super team out of it. So it works out pretty well, including former Devils great Johan LV2. And I think he played for the Oilers too, which is, I mean, not surprising given the state of the Oilers, but, you know, just saying. Fun facts. I know Sergei Fedorov is there. Wow, he actually doesn't want as much money as I wanted. All right, well, Sergei, welcome aboard. We still have 4 contract spots. Let's go for... boy, we still got a lot of goalies. Let's go for Jeff Glass, I do suppose. Doesn't like the depth role, of course you don't, as I'm signing all of the goalies. And let's go for, I mean, again, just all of the top players here. You saw how bad the overall team depth was. I think that, you know, this was a necessary move to recycle everybody here, as Koltsov will be the other guy that we look to sign. So we're definitely not done with the moves yet, because now the roster in general is going to be a lot more well-rounded. Nothing changes about the roster, though, at the moment. So again, Josh Harding will be the backup. So Kochechkin can go. Pretty much everybody aside from Tyler Wyman, who I'm going to have as the third goalie. Pretty much everybody can go. So we'll take a look here. And actually, we need to, again, look for somebody who is relatively cheap. So on the Leafs, we have the likes of Nikolai Kulemin, who I think will be a target. And at this rate, I'm wondering if we're even going to have to focus on weakening Western teams. It's kind of a debatable point. As OEL's fine, so let's go for Alex Killorn. That's well balanced. And I got to be honest, we still have some of these half-star players. I'm going to see what I can do here. Actually, in fairness, the only ones left are Freddie Modine and Jason Blake, who have no value at this point. But we will tack on Parent. Let's go for a couple of other low-end picks to get that deal to go through. Of course, in the long term, I'd probably rather have Ryan Killorn on my team than Nick Kulemin, but still. As we play the Minnesota Wild and win 3-1, so we get back in the win column. Not 3-1, but we get back in the win column 7-1 on the season now. And the Leafs have accepted that deal as well, so Kulemin, welcome aboard. And let's see what the roster looks like as he moves to the second line. Third line right now is Tanner Glass with Sergei Fedorov and Jaromir Jagr, because why the hell not? That is the dumbest setup I have ever seen, and I love it so much. So Washington, outside of a John Carlson, you didn't really have anybody, and I can't really say I need anybody off that roster. Anaheim's off to a god-awful start, and we'll continue to let them flounder. Zach Bogosian's available, but again, defensively, I think we're fine, which means going in for a young Evander Kane could be a great addition for us. As OEL goes nowhere, we'll use Brian Flynn in this deal, at least ideally. We'll use Carter Rowney in the deal as well. Let's use Mario Kempe and Johanna V2. Just tacking on everything that we can. Throw in more than a fourth-round pick, apparently. What about a third? There we go. And we will see if we can get young Evander Kane as well. And that deal has already gone through. Atlanta couldn't wait to get rid of Evander Kane. He'll be a good addition for us. He is immediately on the third line with Fedorov and with Jagr, which is hilarious. What a line that is. As I'm tempted. I know we're going to have to make more changes with the forwards. Also, I'm just going to buy out. No, I'm not. I keep forgetting it's not an option. It's an option in some of the older Sims. It's not an option here, and it causes some complications. Let's see what else we have here. So, Boston. Did you have anybody? Again, just Marchand. I'm not going to make any deals with Boston. I'm going to let them do their own thing, and we'll see what happens. There's no guarantees we even come up against them, but we'll see what happens. Tyler Ennis could be a decent little pickup for us. We'll see if we can get that to work out. So Michael Rafflecopter will be option number 1. We'll throw in Jeff Glass. And who is this? Drew LeBlanc. Okay, I couldn't see what the first name was. For one-star players, let's throw in Bliznak, Mario Bliznak. And third-round pick is not enough. Is a second-round pick enough? No, it is not, and we do not have an extra first-round pick, so Bliznak's out. We'll go second-rounder. Okay, so yeah, they just don't want Bliznak. All right, so it's going to be Raffle Glass, and LeBlanc, along with a second-round pick. We're going to try to get Tyler Ennis from Buffalo as we move on to play Colorado and pick up a 6-3 win over Craig Anderson and the Avs, as that deal as well has gone through. So looking at the roster, it's looking pretty good. Got to admit, Jagr's on the fourth line with Rafi Torres and Yannick Hansen. Ridiculous. So again, goalie-wise, Kochechkin can go, Ramo can go, and Grice can go, so we're still not done. Not yet, at the very least. So Calgary, no cheap options for us, really. Carolina, Sutter is there, and I'm so tempted, not to mention Jeff Skinner. And I think those are two players that we can't really pass up on if given the opportunity to go after. I don't know if I can swing this to get both of them in the same deal, but I am certainly going to try. So we'll add Kochechkin to the deal. We'll add Ramo to the deal. We will also add Josh Harding. Nope, that's right. Harding had the no trade clause. Never mind. Who was I thinking? I was thinking of Grice. There we go. And then draft pick wise, will a second and third be enough? Yes, it would. That is a massive deal for us if that actually goes through. That is huge, and it does. Sutter and Skinner. I think that'll make Canucks fans feel a little bit better about getting Sutter, just like they did in real life. We also get Jeff Skinner. So now it is going to be the Sedins and Ben, Burrows, Kessler, Sutter, Skinner, Ennis, Kuhlman, Kane, Fedorov, and Yager, which is insane. And of course, the forward depth itself, it's looking pretty good. Goaltending-wise, we're pretty much set. About time Luongo and Harding both go down. That means it was not meant to be, regardless. There's actually still a lot of 2-star ability guys. I'm surprised. Let's go for, if anybody, I'm not sure. Really, I think our roster is about as good as it can be. We have $2 million in cap space, so there's really nobody that we can add to this deal to get this to go through. I mean, God, you know how much I'd love to trade Alex Burrows, but self-restraint, I'm going to keep him on this team. Dahlman's actually making a little bit more than I thought he was, but that's the point. Like, this is the only strategy that we could have taken, is just to bump up this team by getting these younger talents on these cheaper contracts. That is the only way it was going to work, as we're still going to look to bring in other guys. I just saw Tony Hand on the board. He was available. We're still going to look to bring in whoever the hell we can to make sure that the squad depth is the best it can possibly be in case of injuries, because we've already seen it so far this year. We have quite a few players on roster who are absolutely injury prone. Now, whether or not they're going to be playing, time will tell, because the roster has changed quite a bit. But I'm feeling pretty good about this. I want to sign Richard Park as well. And we'll leave one roster spot just in case. So if I reset this right now, our ideal lineup is, again, going to be the Sedins and Ben, Burrows, Kessler, Sutter, Skinner, Ennis, and Kuhlman, Kane, Fedorov, and Yager. Hedman, Myers, Hamhugh, Shen, Garrison, and OEL are the defensive pairings. You have Bieksa, Kevin Dahlman, and Sammy Salo as healthy scratches. It's looking pretty good. Pretty good indeed. It's just whether or not, I mean, for example, the last guy left that I could think of that I saw as like a truly elite talent who's on a low deal was Stamkos. And I don't think that's going to be possible. We would have to give up some fairly ridiculous players to make that happen. I mean, maybe a Jeff Skinner would be like a start. Vander Kane as well, since we've acquired him. Another 2-star guy. I wouldn't want to get rid of Luke Shen. Matt Reed could also be used, but I don't see any way that we were to ever get that to go through. Yeah, it's not going to happen. There's just not a chance of that. But maybe there is somebody, like a Carl Gunnarsson, just kidding. Maybe there is somebody who's close to Stamkos level on a cheap deal. Like Alex Pietrangelo is not going to work for us. Ben Bishop isn't going to work for us. The one thing I'm worried about is that we really haven't been able to weaken these other teams due to the limitations of the cap, which was to be expected. The still Phoenix Coyotes, nobody there. Philadelphia, nobody. You have James, JVR, but he's in that same boat of the players that we already have. Erik Karlsson is 3-star. He would be a pretty good pickup, admittedly. It's so weird to me that it ditched Edler on us, but maybe that was like an auto thing because we were over the cap. I'm not entirely sure. Travis Hamonic, John Tavares might be hurt. Hamonic, again, though, really doesn't help. Grabner's at 2.5-star. The Rangers, nobody there. Nashville, Nobody cheap. I think the roster is just about as good as we can get it to be. Max Pacioretty is the next step up. So Patches right now is the only guy I've seen in terms of, better than the average of the players that we have already. He is the only guy I've seen that we could look to bring in to try and get better. Aside from that, we're set. Dubnyk's not going to help. Magnus Pajärvi and Taylor Hall aren't going to help this season. And of course, it is a one-season challenge. Dallas, we got the big acquisition. James Neal is still there, but he's in the same caliber of the players that we already have. Pacioretty's that next step up at 3-star. Colorado, O'Reilly. O'Reilly was the last one. Not to mention Matt Duchene. So Pacioretty, O'Reilly, and Duchene, I think, are the last ones that we can look to target here. Which, not exactly bad targets, I'll say that. Yep, those are the ones. So, let's do this. Let's see if we can get Pacioretty from Montreal first, because we should still have the ability to get whoever we want from there. We also still have a lot of draft picks to work with. So, Patches. And let's tack on. To be honest, I'm not sure who. You got the likes of Jeff Tambellini, Sergei Shirokov, and Rick Rippon. Those are the guys that are probably the next targets. So we'll add Shirokov, Tambellini. I don't want to trade Rick Rippon. Let's go third rounders. Yeah, it's going to take people better than that. Like I said, we're so low on draft picks now. Not that the roster hasn't improved significantly because of it. 2-star wise, let's add Kaspar. That's not enough. So we'll take out Shirokov. Let's add Park. That is still not enough. The only way I can bump up value now is to take back someone like a Jeff Halpern. The Habs really want to get rid of. Some of the negatives on the team, a Curtis Sanford. And really, that's about it. I could also look to add a Brendan Nash, but there's not too much more value I could add to this, unfortunately. It is going to take like a 2-star player to get a 3-star player. Garrison, Skinner, Kane. We could use Alexei Morozov. I think we're done. I don't think there's anybody else we can afford to get, at least for the caliber of talent that we're looking at. Like, it's trade Skinner to get Pacioretty, basically. That's what we're looking at. Which isn't the worst case scenario, because it's kind of why I stocked up on these 2-star guys with potential. It's just a weird trade to make, right? And as it is, that's well balanced, huh? That's only well balanced. That's crazy. Man, Pacioretty, you're going to be a little bit more expensive than I was hoping, buddy. We have Yannick Hansen. Let's use Matt Reed. All right, so we're going to have to trade Skinner, Kane, Matt Reed in 2/3 from Max Pacioretty, Jeff Halpern, and Curtis Sanford. I'm going to do it because Patches is better, and we have an overall improved team depth as a result of it. So let's see what we can do here against the New Jersey Devils. That is a 5-1 win. We have won 9 out of our first 10 games to start this season. Let's play the Oilers. And it's a 1-0 overtime win. Good stuff. Sammy Salas suffers a setback in his rehab process, so we won't be seeing him for a while. We end up beating Colorado 5-2. We're 11-1 on the season. Max Pacioretty, welcome aboard. And I guess the question is whether or not we can still swing one final deal or two to the Colorado Avalanche. I suppose Ryan O'Reilly could have been the initial target rather than Pacioretty, but it's still going to be rough. If we can't get O'Reilly, we try to settle for Duchene. If we can't get Duchene, it's over, and there's nothing else we can do. Pacioretty's actually only 2.5 star, but technically he is better. So you know what? Hell, we can then use Pacioretty to try and move up and get Ryan O'Reilly, who's even better. So we use Skinner and Kane to get Pacioretty, who was better than them, and then we use Pacioretty to get Ryan O'Reilly. Makes all the sense in the world to me. We'll add Shirokov to the deal. We will add Tambellini to the deal. And let's throw some draft picks their way if we have enough in value, and we do not, unless we can use the same trick that we used on Montreal and tack on someone like David Kochi. There we go. So this will be our last deal as we try to get Ryan O'Reilly to solve our final issues. Detroit, we get a 3-0 win. That's a statement victory for this club. And there we go. Ryan O'Reilly and David Kochi are the last 2 additions to this team. We have done literally everything that we can. So this is the squad. The Sedins and Ben, Burrows, Kessler, O'Reilly, Kuhlman, Holden, Sutter, Torres, Yager, and Ennis. Yager at center, as weird as that is. And honestly, at that point, it makes a bit more sense to do something like that, I would say. Although, then again, even having Ennis on that line is kind of weird. I'm going to bump Ennis up. Ennis, O'Reilly, Sutter. There's room to negotiate here, we'll say, especially to, I mean, hell, we don't even have Yannick Hansen in this lineup. Sergei Fedorov is a healthy scratch. I'll probably change up the team for the playoffs, but I think this is the roster that we are going to look to win this challenge with, and now you can see how much it's improved overall. So I will see you guys at the end of the season and the start of the playoffs, where this challenge will truly get underway. With a 66-16-0 record, the Canucks have lived up to the hype, taking the top record in the Western Conference. We'll take a look here. In the East, you had Washington lead the way with 108 points. Pittsburgh, Boston, Philadelphia, Tampa, New York, Carolina, and Montreal all made the playoffs. And of course, us in the West, alongside Chicago, Los Angeles, Detroit, Nashville, Minnesota, Columbus, and St. Louis. We were the top team in the league. Whether or not the President's Trophy curse lives on, time will tell. To look at this squad and what they accomplished, although to point out, Henrik Sedin, or Daniel Sedin day-to-day, Sutter is out for 2 to 3 months, which I've just learned about right now. That sucks, and that is a pretty major loss. But again, we might and probably will change up the players available to us in just a moment. So let's take a look here, though, at the very least, at how the team did this season. Jamie Benn with a team-high 97 points, 53 goals for the major acquisition, who is up to 4.5 star, and that might be the reason we win in and of itself. Ryan Kessler with 51 points on the year. Hedman, though, with 39. The overall depth scoring, it dropped off a little bit. Ryan O'Reilly only 33 points. Burrows with 32. I'm a little bit concerned. You see 66 wins, and you might think you have some higher goal scorers than that, but apparently not. The good thing is, one Roberto Luongo with a .933 save percentage. Vezina caliber, if I do say so myself. I do want to take a look at the injured list, though, where Daniel Sedin, 74 points in 78 games. Sutter, 20 points in 56 games. And if we take a look at the roster, I mean, again, our top 6 is good to go. Probably have BX as a healthy scratch. Although Dahlman right now is 2.5 star, which would technically make him the fourth best defenseman on this team. The defense in general right now is looking to have slipped up a little bit. They're not quite at the same caliber that I was hoping for. But we will try to use Dahlman more than likely. We still have to set up this team for the playoffs. We'll do so in a moment. Let's take a look at the rest of the league, shall we? As Patrick Kane led the league in goals with 63. Ben and Stamkos were the only other two to break 50. Total points, it was Nick Backstrom with 116. Kane and Stamkos also broke the 100-point mark. Let's move forward today. We are playing the St. Louis Blues in the first round of the playoffs, and we'll get a full look at the playoff tree here. So we play St. Louis. It is Columbus and Chicago, Minnesota, Los Angeles, Nashville, and Detroit in the East, Montreal, Washington, Carolina, Pittsburgh, New York, and Boston, Tampa, and Philadelphia. Let's see overall what this squad looks like. Kevin Dahlman's 30, huh? So Koltsov, we're going to drop down. Bieksa can stay. Maybe. I mean, I'm looking at these 2-star players, though. I honestly think I'm going to send OEL down, and I think I'm going to send Luke Shen down as well, because they didn't really develop throughout the course of the season. And I think we're going to have Garrison, Bieksa, and Dahlman be the other guys on defense here. And then I think I'll call up Keith Ballard as a healthy scratch. And then forward-wise, to focus on who helped get us here. Holden down to 1.5 stars. Parsons 2 stars. Tanner Glass is 2 stars. I'm going to call up Tanner Glass. I want to stay loyal to some players where I can. So Tanner Glass will get the bump up. Fedorov at 2 stars. So Parsons also 2 stars. Volpati. We won't be using anybody else there. Tanute is 2 stars. Joel Lundqvist, who I didn't even notice that we signed. Richard Park. Rick Rippon is 1.5 stars. And then Yannick Hansen, also 2 stars. I definitely want to get him and Samuelson back onto this roster. So we are going to drop Sergei Fedorov. It's not as if he was crazy good this year. And we'll bump up Yannick Hansen. We are going to drop Alexei Morozov, who only had 5 points this year. And we're going to bump up Samuelson, or accidentally end up on the wrong screen. We're going to bump up Samuelson. And do I have room to bump up Rick Rippon? I should, because of the lack of defensemen that we have. So we're going to have, let's see, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 with 3 healthy scratches, huh? Yager had 30 points this year, which is interesting. Kuhlman on 33. And of course, the likes of Tyler Ennis. So if I go with create lines, if I go set up organization, it's not going to reset all of it, is it? It absolutely did, didn't it? Yeah, it did. It called Luke Shen back up. That's okay, though. So if I drop Shen again, because I want to run with Dahlman, who had actually been better, we should be good to go. So again, we're not going to use Ballard, but we are going to dress Dahlman and bring him in. It has him assigned as a point shooter. So Samuelson right now and Ballard are both healthy scratches, which I am okay with. So yeah, technically it has Rippon in on the 4th line. We could go with one hell of a grind line between Glass, Torres, and Rippon. My God, the amount of grit there. And then Samuelson right now is a healthy scratch, which is a little bit weird. I'm tempted to take out Ennis or Yager, maybe even Kuhlman, just to try and stay loyal, at least a little bit. But of course, the goal here ultimately is to win. Can anybody play center out of that group of Glass, Rippon, and Torres? Torres can play wing. Rippon can technically play center. Okay. And then Glass and Torres, either one. So yeah, that 4th line is just, oh my God, what a pain in the ass that would be to deal with. And then in terms of what to do, you know what, I want to be... I mean, again, it's so weird because Daniel Sedin's out of the lineup right now, too. I think I'm going to put Henrik with the most amount of skill as I can. And we're going to go with Yager, Sedin, and Ben. As weird as that is, we'll go Burrows, Kessler, and I think Hansen, because there's some defensive grit there, and then Kuhlman, Ennis, and O'Reilly. I'm going to put O'Reilly at center just because it's kind of weird. That's some damn good center depth, though, with Sedin, Kessler, and O'Reilly. Pretty crazy. Defensively, Hamhuis, Bieksa, Hedman, and Myers, Garrison, and Dahlman. And of course, Roberto Luongo between the pipes. I think we have our squad. And again, if you look at the star ratings there, pretty damn well-rounded. What are we up against here in the form of the St. Louis Blues? Eric Johnson, Pietrangelo, Backus, Yaroslav Halak will probably be between the pipes. Oshie, Barrett Jackman. It's a pretty damn good team. I'd like to think we're better, but that is a very well-rounded team. So again, the lines are Steen, Berglund, Backus, Perron, Sabotka, Oshie. Boys, Andy McDonald, BJ Crombeen, Porter, Cracknell, and D'Agostini. Defensively, Pietrangelo, Johnson, Jackman, Polak, White, Koliakovo. Between the pipes, it is Yaroslav Halak. Let's do this. We are speed running the playoffs. First game here in the first round, and it's a 4-1 win for the St. Louis Blues. That is a huge statement victory for them. A hat trick of assists for Backus. Kessler and Tyler Myers are going to miss this next game, which is a disastrous situation for us. Absolutely disastrous, and we're going to have to go with the full organizational setup. I mean, I don't really have a choice here, do I? That is crazy. So Shen gets the call up, which I'm fine with. And in fairness, though, I am going to replace him with Keith Ballard. So Shen will be out. Where is your name? Shen. And we're going to bring in Keith Ballard and see what he can do. He will be with, probably, I'm going to put him with Jason Garrison. He's listed as a crease clearing defenseman, which, is that his best role? Yeah, it is. That or shutdown defenseman. And then forward-wise, it's still going to be that grind line of Torres, Rippon, and Glass. We're going to go... it's kind of a tough call here, actually, as far as who should be the center. I'm going to go with a little bit more center depth, I got to be honest. I'm going to drop Jamie Benn down. Actually, I'm going to keep Jamie Benn on the top line, as weird as that is. And we're going to go with Yager, Benn, Ennis, Burrows, Sedin, Hansen, Kuhlman, O'Reilly, Samuelson. It's a really weird team right now, and if we lose this second game to St. Louis, which we did not, thankfully, we get a 3-2 win. It's kind of a weird team right now with some of the players that underperformed. Obviously, just weird to see some of these names in these places, but still, Daniel Sedin might be back for this. Ryan Kessler, at the very least, is back, and we're going to just stay with the best team available. So technically, Tyler Myers isn't even in the lineup right now, but yeah, he is hurt. I'm just going to stick with the best lines available. Screw it. Although I do want to put Tanner Glass and Yager on different spots. You know what? Okay. We're at least going to go with the best personnel. I don't want Yager on the fourth line, though. I'd rather have him on the second line. A big game 3 here against St. Louis. Let's see what happens. The Blues get a 5-2 win. They take a 2-1 series lead. A big game for TJ Oshie. And I hope Tyler Myers is fit enough to play, but those major injuries, as Yannick Hansen goes down to injury, the major injuries to Sutter and to Daniel Sedin certainly affecting this team right now. I don't know if I want to drop that fourth line grit and go for a more skilled line with the likes of Morozov, Fedorov, and Parshin, but they didn't exactly do well this year. Samuelson, Ennis, and Yager. Kuhlman's going to drop down. We'll bump up Yager. Let's see what happens. Big time game 4. Can we get the win? We do. 4-3 in overtime. It is a best of 3, essentially, from this point on. Sweating a little bit, man. This team should do well, and we're up against it right now. It's going to be a major game 5 coming up as Yannick Hansen is back in the lineup. Still no word about Daniel Sedin. Jaromir Jagr has been taken out of the lineup. Very interesting move there. We're going to run Samuelson, Ennis, Kuhlman, Hansen, Henrik, and Ryan O'Reilly. Let's see what happens. We need a win, and we get it. 5-1, the most convincing win in the series yet. Roberto Luongo with a big-time game, and we are 1 win away from the second round as Tyler Myers is back to 100%. Let's double-check this lineup yet again, and we're looking okay. Now, in fairness, from a tactical standpoint, we've, it's an interesting one. Hitting-wise, we don't have the most physical team, but I think we're going to bump all these up to at least a medium just to kind of get everything going. We're going to go flexible with that little bit of skill that we have. Neutral zone offense as the funnel. That works for me. Yeah, it works for me. Offensive zone. Funnel. Activated D. And we'll stay funnel. Offensive zone behind the net still works for me too. The forecheck. Full-on torpedo. Makes sense to stick with the offense. Neutral zone. We're running a 1-3-1, which is kind of surprising. We're going to switch to the 1-2-2 retreat and defensive zone coverage. Let's go with the strict zonal. And as far as the power play breakout is concerned, that's all pretty much good to go. Big time game 5 here in St. Louis. We get the win. That was a game 6, never mind. We get the win, and we take the series. We are playing Detroit. And actually, Yager was hurt. We are playing Detroit in round 2. I'm not sure how confident I feel about that. They took care of Nashville in 5 games. You have Chicago and Los Angeles as well, so the top 4 seeds all advance. In the East, it's Carolina and Washington, Philadelphia, and Boston. The Bruins got past the Rangers in 7. So a little bit controversial for us here, where we have had so many lineup changes. We're still not at 100%. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. And then tactics-wise, I'm still not feeling it. I mean, that's how it sets up the tactics if I have the assistant coach kind of take over. That is apparently how we are suited to play. So I'm going to trust it. And we're going to play Game 1 against Detroit and see what we can do. I don't really think too many members of this team need an introduction. Henrik Zetterberg, Pavel Datsyuk, and Yuri Hudler is the top line. Darren Helm, Valtteri Filppula, and Justin Abdelkader. Johan Franzen, Jan Mursak, and Tomas Tatar. Ruslan Fedotenko, I think that's Corey Emerton, and Dan Cleary. The defense is Brad Stewart and Cronwall, Nick Lidstrom, and Maxim Fortunis. That is insane. Jonathan Eriksson and Jakob Kindl. The goaltender is Jimmy Howard. Let's do this. First game of this series, and Detroit wins it by the score of 4-2. So yet again, we are behind the 8 ball early as the autosave kicks in. Hall of Fame nominee. Who do we want to vote for out of this group? I mean, Glenn Wesley. It's the Bruins fan in me. Game 2. I'm actually going to, again, reset the lineup. I'm going to trust the assistant with this one. But just to make sure everyone's good to go, let's do this. Game 2 against Detroit. We need a big-time win. We don't get it. The Red Wings win both games on the road to start this series. We do have Daniel Sedin back if he's off of the IR, and thank God he is. That is a massive pick-me-up for this team right now to get Daniel Sedin back. Damn. Damn. I'm going to drop... I don't know who the hell I'm going to drop. I don't really want Torres and Yager working together. Let's send down Kuhlman and then drop down Burrows and still have Yager with skilled players. Let's do it. Game 3. We are in desperate need of a win here against Detroit. Can we get it? As the series switches to Detroit, the Red Wings are up 3-0 in this series. The goal of trying to win the cup for the Canucks is very much in danger thanks to that ridiculousness right there. We are against it here in Game 4. A reverse sweep is necessary as Alex Burrows goes down to injury when we arguably needed him the most. We are going to take Tanner Glass out of this lineup. And I think as well, it's kind of a tough call as far as who gets the bump up. I don't even know if anybody should. Holden, Parshin, Morozov, of course, didn't do that well. Parshin did all right in the AHL. Tanute. Joey Tanute. I don't know who we go with here. I did not expect us to be in this situation, yet here we are. Oh, man. In fairness, I mean, all of our forwards aren't going to be able to play anyway. It called up Morozov. I'm good with that. It's going to be this Daniel, Kessler, Ben, Kuhlman, Henrik, and Ryan O'Reilly. Torres, Fedorov, Hansen, Morozov, Ennis, and Yager. OEL with Bieksa. Hamhuis with Myers, Hedman, and Shen. Can we save our season? No, we cannot. We get swept by Detroit. And we have fallen short of our goal. The Detroit Red Wings sweep the Vancouver Canucks. We did literally everything we could to improve this team, and it was not enough. We fall short. It is a Detroit and Philadelphia Cup final. Is it over? Detroit is just about to win a Stanley Cup yet again. Is the deal done? Yes, it is. Your 2011 Stanley Cup champions, the Detroit Red Wings. We fall in the second round. They swept us. They go on to outlast Los Angeles in 7, Over in the East, Philly beats Boston in a Game 7 for the second year in a row. Kill me. Washington beats Carolina. Philly beats Washington in 7. And then Detroit wins it all. The Detroit Red Wings, not the Vancouver Canucks, are the ones to break my heart, as I don't win regardless. The Bruins didn't win the cup, and I didn't win this challenge. Gotta wonder what else could have been done. Maybe using those first-round picks a little bit better. We went for an overall improved squad depth, but certainly running into the cap, but having some big-time contracts already on the team, that did not make things any easier for us. It's another challenge in the books, but it goes down as an unsuccessful one. And I'm still kind of in a state of shock. Thank you guys for sticking around with this video. I know I'm kind of tempted to maybe shorten up the whole trading aspect of it, but it is a big part of it, of course, so you guys can see, like, oh, okay, you know, it's just, that's the process. There's not anything stupid going on with it. It's just, oh yeah, wheeling and dealing, trying to take advantage of the trade system. And like I said, for those who don't care, you kind of know. You can skip to the postseason aspect of it and just see what the team looks like. So there is that. I thank you guys for watching. Again, if you enjoyed the series, you know what to do with the whole support in the video and the channel and such. Let me know down in the comments what challenge you'd like to see me take on next. Again, the database is open between anywhere in the years 1917 and 2018 up to current day. Let me know. Preferably single season challenges, though. Let me know down in the comments below. If you see a comment that you agree with, thumbs that up. Those will be the ones that I pay the most attention to. This, of course, was by far the most requested challenge, which is why we went forward with it. I'm out of here. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Until then, goodbye.